Hey guys, it is Tamara. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about signs that you are emotionally and psychologically bonded to the abuser in your life. You know, this is a video that I have done in a variety of ways on this channel over the years. And one of the ways I talk about this topic is by really zoning in and focusing on what's known as traumatic bonding. And so as we go along through the video, I'm going to highlight just a few of those videos for you if you want to go back and learn about them. But I think it's important because, you know, holiday time is coming up and we're going to be, you know, despite COVID, we're going to be connecting with some family members. We're going to be going through things psychologically and emotionally. We're going to be processing things, you know, and we're also going to be kind of looking over and examining our relationships because we have tons of time to do that, you know, and I think, you know, having a video that says, you know what, hey, this is what's happening to you. Let me validate you. Might be helpful. So let's just go ahead and jump into this video. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. For all of you who are subscribed to participating, thank you so much. And for those who are new, I encourage you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can stick around with us and be a part of our growing and validating community. And in case you don't know who I am, let me go ahead and briefly introduce myself. My name is Tamara, and I'm an internationally and board certified trauma therapist, but I'm also licensed in mental health, and I specialize within my practice in working with children, teens, families, and adults with trauma history. So let's go ahead and jump into this video. Traumatic bonding is a topic that a lot of people are not familiar with. And, you know, one of the reasons is because it's complicated. You know, it's something that a lot of people, you know, do not know much about. It takes, I think, a little bit of research to find the topic of traumatic bonding, and the only time you're really going to get that inside knowledge of what traumatic bonding is, you know, if you've gone to psychotherapy, or if you're watching videos such as my own, or you're doing your own self-learning. I think that's the only way that you're really going to learn about this topic. So, you know, a lot of people are in relationships where traumatic bonding is occurring, and they don't know how they got in it, and they don't know why. So what I'm going to focus on, though, in this video, and I'm going to post some of my old videos so you can kind of get those questions answered. If you think that those kind of relate to you, you can find the answers to those questions in those videos. But what I want to do in today's video is highlight some of the ways that you might actually be bonded to your abuser. And that's not a good thing because there's something going on with you on the inside, and you're using that other person to fill that. And unfortunately, you know, that person most likely is abusive, and it's going to end badly. Okay, so, you know, let me go ahead and just start with the first thing. Okay, when I have an individual that comes in for psychotherapy, or when they're asking me for a consultation, they're in a relationship with an abuser, the first thing I notice that they do, and they really try hard not to do it sometimes, is justify. Really and honestly, when you are bonded to your abuser, you're going to justify. And there's a ton of reasons why. There may be fear. There may be pride on your part. There may be your reputation or your employment attached to that person. There may be some major risks that you've engaged in to have that person in your life. Affairs, lying, cheating, stealing, whatever, pathological lying. You may have gone to, you know, really, you know, large extents, or you may have really stretched the truth in your relationship just to get that person to like you. Maybe you even have lied pathologically in the relationship. Whatever may be the case, you're going to justify because somewhere you're wrapped up emotionally and psychologically in that relationship. And if it's dismantled or it turns out to not be a good relationship, then you've got to take that fall. And you don't want to do that, right? So some people will justify and justify and justify until they can't justify anymore because they're trying to cover their mistakes, pretty much. Other times it's fear. Other times embarrassment. And still other times it may just be that, you know, there's loneliness there and there's a desire to be in a relationship. And so that makes it really hard to face the truth. So you justify. Okay, the next thing, guys, that I've seen is defense mechanisms, and I talk about that right up here in this video. It's my most recent video on defense mechanisms. You know, when you're bonded to your abuser, you are going to engage in utilizing defense mechanisms. Now, there's two defense mechanisms that I've noticed. One is known as reaction formation. Right over here, guys, reaction formation. The next is compensation. So reaction formation is when you actually have an internalized emotion that's kind of deep-seated, and because you're either afraid to express it or you don't want to express it, you actually express the opposite emotion of what you're feeling. So let's say you're expressing happiness and joy towards that person who's abusing you, but on the inside, you're really experiencing anxiety, you're really experiencing depression, and you might even be experiencing suicidal thoughts. You want to escape, but you don't know how to. Right? So you express the opposite emotion of that emotion that you're feeling on the inside. Compensation is, I know I don't have what I want, but I'm going to go ahead and compensate. And I'm going to highlight the things that I do have. And I'm going to highlight the good aspects of this relationship because I know I don't have what I really want. So you compensate. Okay? The next thing, guys, is over-identification and enmeshment. Okay? Over-identification, you over-identify with that person. He had an abusive father like I did. She had a mother that was a prostitute like I did. He was hit multiple times, you know, by his cousin and sexually abused like I was. We both grew up in a very poor neighborhood, and we both had really rough pasts. Okay? You over-identify with the abuser, and that's kind of your way of justifying as well, right? You make it okay in your mind by over-identifying. Well, I went through a hard time and so did he. Or he's been there for me so many times. I don't even know why I'm complaining, right? That's over-identification. You're justifying at that point, you know? And that's when you know there's a problem, because you know you shouldn't be doing it, but you're doing it. And then you may go back and say, you know what? I really shouldn't think this way, should I? That's how you know that you're in that cycle of traumatic bonding. You're in that cycle of codependency because you're justifying and then you're going back and recognizing that you're justifying. So it's a problem all the way around. Enmeshment is when you're so ingrained that you don't have an identity of your own, right? You're so enmeshed. Okay, that's a family therapy term. Enmeshment. Here we go right here. You're so enmeshed and so codependent that you can't unravel from that individual long enough to see your own needs, to see your needs, because you're so enmeshed and so wrapped up in them. Okay? The next thing, guys, is the mindset of I owe you. I owe you, right? You may feel like that person worked while you stayed at home. You may feel like that person rescued you from another abusive situation. You may feel like that person has paid your way through college. You may feel like that person has given you a job. Whatever the case may be, you may feel I owe you. And so when you're in traumatic bonding or when you're in codependency, you're going to have that mindset most likely that I owe you. Why would I leave you? Because I owe you. Why would I call you out on your behavior? Because I owe you. And so again, you're over-identifying, you're being codependent, and you're justifying. So you may have the I owe you mindset. Okay, guys? The next one is being passive and allowing that individual to abuse you and those that you love. I've seen women in relationships like this. They want to be married so desperately, and they're so lonely, and they're so broken, and they're so needy at the time that they don't mind a new man coming into the world, controlling things, controlling their children, controlling their access to things, controlling their freedom, because really, at the end of the day, they have what they want, which is companionship. So they don't care if it's abusive, right? I've seen men like this as well. They want the sexual companionship. They want the sexual stimulation. They want the sexual intimacy, so badly that they are willing to be abused by that woman. They are willing to go to work and work all kinds of hours to be a part of that woman's life because they want that intimacy. So traumatic bonding and being psychologically and emotionally dependent on somebody else can result in that passive way that you are existing in your relationship. You don't push buttons, you just go with the flow, right? You don't say anything, you just go with the flow. You've been beat up so many times by that person's disposition, attitude, belief systems, delusions, paranoia, that you just become the passive one. What else can you do? So there's a couple of ways that you can become this kind of an individual, and I'm going to highlight these before we wrap up. The first is risk and protective factors. If you don't have enough protective factors, and I talk about that a little bit more extensively in this video right up here, and if you have more risk factors, which are things that make you more vulnerable to life, no parents, poor education, criminal record, juvenile delinquency, substance abuse, mental illness, right? All of those risk factors, those are the things that make you more vulnerable to life. They make you more vulnerable to having troubles in your future. If you have more risk factors and less protective factors, things that protect you from the risk factors, then you're more likely to be traumatically bonded or bonded to the abuser. Okay, it's going to be a little bit easier because you need and you're needy and you have challenges and issues and things that you face that are scary, right? So you're going to be more vulnerable. The next thing is borderline personality disorder and family invalidation. When you're invalidated by your family repeatedly, you're going to seek that in somebody else. And if you're getting that from somebody who's abusing you, you're not going to run away. You're going to stay there. And if you have borderline personality disorder that's untreated or poorly treated, or you just tend to be a little bit more intense and emotional, you're going to seek that emotional stimulation from somebody. And it doesn't matter if you're being abused, it's still a relationship where you're getting stimulation emotionally. And so you're going to cling to that, and it's going to be harder for you to let go. Okay? I have some other things on my list right here as well. Homelessness and financial strain, guys. That's another issue that you're most likely going to become bonded to the abuser. You're reliant upon that individual financially, and you may have been homeless at one time. You may be afraid of becoming homeless, so you're going to deal with that abuse because you feel that you need them. Lastly, I have placating and pleasing, right? You may be the kind of person that feels like, you know what, I'm going to go to therapy because I want to keep my relationship, and although I know she's the problem, and although I know he's the problem, I'm going to go to therapy to see what it is that I'm doing wrong. That is a problem because you're placating and you're pleasing to have that relationship, and you know you really shouldn't. You know, you may also feel intuitively on the inside that you are stretching yourself, that you're trying to make something work by calling yourself the problem, or trying to make sure that you're not the problem because you don't want to lose that relationship. And again, you're bonded to the abuser. It's a very, very traumatic cycle that you can get yourself into. And unfortunately, these cycles are easier to get into than not to get into. So stay tuned, guys. I'm going to continue to talk about this topic into December. We're going to continue our topics on these matters. You know, holiday season is really when these things start to pop into our mind and we start to have questions about it. So stick around. Thank you so much for being with me today, guys. In this video, I encourage you to give it a thumbs up and go ahead and hit that subscribe button if this video was helpful to you. I will see you in the next video. Have a wonderful upcoming Thanksgiving, however you decide to spend it. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.